This is LOA Recon with Good Vibe Coach Jeanette Ma, where we explore the ins and outs of conscious creation to manifest our favorite dreams come true. Let's have some fun together. Welcome and thank you for tuning in for another episode. I also wanted to thank you for all the likes and the subscribes and the shares and the reviews and the ratings and the comments. And the emails. You've been sending a lot of love my way, and I truly appreciate it. You are why I keep enjoying this work so much. So thank you. Speaking of emails, I got a good question from someone that I haven't answered in a while, and it's a very common question. So I thought it would be good to address it again. And this question is about money, but frankly, it applies to whatever you're finding tricky to manifest in your world lately. So here's how it reads. I would love to quit my current job because it is not my highest joy and it doesn't bring in enough money. My highest joy right now would be financial freedom. I don't need a whole lot for that, but as Mike Dooley says, the cursed house keep getting in my way. I cannot figure out how in the world to create an income that doesn't take more skills than I currently have or all of my time. All right, I got a couple things I want to say to this. The first one is universe getting an opening from you? I mean, you've clearly placed the order for what you want, but are you making room to receive it? Because freedom and happiness can't come while we are instructing lack and dissatisfaction. So being able to receive it means, are you lined up with what you want, or are you lined up with what you don't want? Are you vibrating financial freedom, or are you dialed on financial lack because the money can't come while we're vibrating no money or not enough money? And I know everyone says, Jeanette, trust me, I can cash the check if someone would just give me one. But you know what? You can't get the check while you're in the vibration of not having the check. And again, this is true for anything we're manifesting, not just money. And you know, the truth is none of us are really just one vibration. Most of us, we got lots of vibrations going on in here. We got a wild mix of having it and not having it, or loving it and not loving it. We got a lot going on in there. We just want to make sure that we've got a good handle on the vibration that lets it happen, instead of knowing so solidly that it's not happening, or I don't have it, or it's not here, or wondering what it's going to take in order to make it happen. What it's going to take is becoming the vibration of what you want, at least some of the time. It doesn't have to be all the time, just more time than you are now. So what I'm really asking here is, how much time are you practicing financial restriction or lack, and how much time are you practicing financial freedom and abundance? Because abundance and freedom doesn't happen while we are knowing lack and restriction. So we just want to tip the scales in our favor. Abraham says, you don't have to get this right 100% of the time, just even 51% in favor of and 49% against. That's enough to get momentum going towards what we want. So the way I practice this is I start the day off with the vibration that I want. In this case, I would start the day off with the vibration of abundance and freedom. And then each time throughout the day when I noticed I was feeling lack or focused on not enough, I would replace that thought with one that inspired feelings of plenty or relief or something better than that. And just doing that, I tip the scales in my favor. It's really that simple. Okay, here's the other cool thing about this question I really like. I think a lot of creators don't recognize the power of this strong desire. When we've been strongly wanting something that hasn't been coming, especially when it's something that matters to us so much, that built-up desire, it's a powerful force. When we create even the slightest opening for something to be delivered, it comes flooding in. So I like it when we're starting to get to that point where feeling a little frustrated, we've just had so much desire behind it. That desire, it's in our favor. So just a little bit of alignment can pay off in a lot of manifestation when you've got that kind of strength of desire behind it. So I'm just saying, don't be surprised if you get some really quick relief coming in with just a little bit more alignment. All right, and as a person who asked this already knows, I'm just going to repeat this idea for those of us who sometimes forget. Our job is not to figure out how. We don't have to know how. There's a bazillion ways how it can happen, and we don't have to know any of them because that's universe's job. Our only job is to get familiar with what? Familiar with what we want. We don't have to know how the money will come. We just have to know what it will feel like when it gets here. That's all our work is. And then that's what our imagination is for. Because when we know what it feels like to have what we want, we're home free. That's giving universe the opening it needs to deliver the goods. And let's not forget, this isn't something we're trying to create because this version of reality already exists on some level. It's not a matter of, is it possible or can this happen? It's not only possible, it already exists on some vibrational level. All you're doing is you change your vibrational frequency by practicing abundance instead of lack is tuning to that version of reality, so that's the one that you get to experience. Bashar actually says we're switching between those different versions of reality billions of times per second, which is mind-boggling. And he says that's all happening according to what we vibrate. So what you want already exists. All you got to do is find the vibration of it. All right, so for anyone who's wondering, yeah, but how do I do that? How do I find the vibration of my desire? Let's talk about that for a second. I just listened to an interview. Vishen Lakhiani interviewed Dr. Srikumar Rao, I think was his name. Thanks to Alex for sharing a link to that interview in the GVU forums. Dr. Rao said, look, it isn't enough to think about what you're grateful for. He was talking about gratitude, but this would apply to any vibration we're looking to activate. He said, it's not enough to think about what you're grateful for. This cannot be a thinking exercise. It has to be felt. He said, a lot of us live in our heads. We're relying on our intellect to make sense of the world. So even those who have gratitude practices, they're thinking of reasons to be grateful instead of feeling grateful. That's an important distinction. And speaking of distinctions, Abraham makes a distinction between gratitude and appreciation. When I hear Dr. Rao talking about gratitude, I'm just thinking of appreciation. But I get his point when he says it's not enough to think the words. If we don't feel it, I call it the click. I might have got that from Florence Scovel Shinn. I can feel a click when I get there, and I can tell when I'm just going through the motions, like I'm going through the routine, but it's not connecting. Yeah, I can tell the difference. And that's what we're looking for. If we're not moving our vibration, it's not going to make a difference. I know you know this because you've either heard it or you've said it yourself. Like when someone says the words, I love you, but you could tell there isn't any love behind it. Like maybe they're just saying it out of habit, or maybe they've even got indifference or frustration. Like when someone says, bless your heart. Okay, sometimes those words, on paper, they sound nice, but that's not always how they're intended. Okay, I'm saying the words, the thinking, it's not enough. At least that's not what matters. Thinking financial freedom is not what morphs our reality. Feeling it is what we're shooting for. And as Dr. Rao says, you can't chase the feeling. He says you have to let it find you, but you can create the conditions for that feeling to find you. In my law of attraction experience, there are lots of ways for conscious creators to practice getting to that feeling place of what we want. I got 5 quick ones. I'll just run through these super quick. The first one, I already mentioned our imagination. So you could just imagine having it. What does that feel like? When I engage this one, I often do it in the past tense. I kind of Nevillize this a little bit where I treat it like it's already done, like I'm looking backwards in time on it. So this already happened, and I just think back on what are my favorite things about this thing that already happened. Oh, I like that one. Okay, another thing you can do is just remember a time when you maybe actually did have this or something like it in your personal past. What did that feel like? Even if you're going all the way back to childhood, or your first big payday, or the time grandma accidentally sent 2 birthday cards with a $10 bill inside. There's likely a time in your history where you felt these feelings. Just recalling that experience activates those vibrations now. Another thing you could do is draft off someone else. Find someone who's got this going on and pay attention to their experience. Like if you can notice someone who seems like they've got what you want, just observe and imagine what that feels like. Well, I had a mentor coach once upon a time, Gina Gabellini, had me read Paris Hilton's Confessions of an Heiress to activate more abundant money vibrations. Look, I wasn't a giant fan of Paris. This was decades ago. I wasn't a giant fan of Paris's, but I'll tell you what, reading that book did something for my money vibration. Or maybe you could watch Succession, the TV series, or whoever you feel called to be an understudy to, whoever's got or appears to have. We can never really know what someone else has got going on, but sometimes just looking at what it looks like someone else is experiencing can activate that within us. That's why they tell us, in conscious creation to always be so deliberate, so discerning about what we're tuned into, because even if it's someone else's experience, it activates the vibrations in us. So we can use that to our advantage. Just notice someone else who's got it and draft off their vibrations. Another way to do this, you might script it, like you're narrating your experience of it, and see if that conjures the feelings while you're speaking about it or writing about it. You could do this in written form as well, like in Pray Rain journaling. For those who don't know Pray Rain journaling, that's where you write a page a day about what you want as if you already had it. And by the time you get to the end of your book, you'll either have it or it'll be so close you can reach out and touch it. There were some times when I practiced that, writing my page about what I wanted as if I already had it, where it just felt like I was going through the motions. Like it was rote. It was bland. It was unfeeling. It was just words on a page. But you know what? After a couple more times doing it, I started to get an in with it. It started to translate to feelings. I started to acclimate to what that felt like. It became more familiar to me because I was inviting it in every time I was putting pen to paper, writing about what it was like, doing it repeatedly, and it found me. And if it doesn't do that for you, whether it's through journaling or scripting or visualizing or whatever, then try something else. I mean, it might take a couple of tries before you get the click. But that's why this work is so personal, because what works for one person, it might not work for another, and what worked for you before might not work on a new topic. You've got to be willing to experiment and get creative about finding what moves your vibration. Okay, the fifth one I wanted to mention was, I like this. So in fact, I think it was in a recent episode I mentioned the money meditation that I got from Eva Gregory. Reading something like that might work. Or listening to Abraham. They have a Vortex money meditation. You can find it on YouTube. Or Paul McKenna's I Can Make You Rich. Plug into something that will take you there. I'm just saying, you can let this be easy. And it does work best when it's enjoyable. But you've got to pay attention to how you're feeling, because what you're feeling is a sign of what you're vibrating. And that's what's making the difference here. That's what we're looking to manage. And yes, this might take some practice. The repetition is good, but this is what conscious creation is. It's being willing to practice what we want before it gets here. That's so much more reliable than taking actions that may or may not accidentally trigger the right vibrations within us that allow the manifestations to appear. That's what's happening with muggles who are trying to action their way to what they want. When their actions pay off, it's because they got the right vibrations activated in the process. And when their actions don't pay off, it's because the actions did not help trigger the helpful vibrations. And I don't mean to diss on action, because it can be a very effective way to get to that place of believing and expecting, which are powerful vibrational instructions. But let's just be aware of what's making the real difference here. It isn't that we took the right action. There's no such thing as a right action. It doesn't matter what we do. It only matters how we feel. That's an Abraham quote that I love reminding myself. It doesn't matter what we do. It only matters how we feel. It just matters what vibrations we're activating. So remember, the vibration will always trump the action. So if you've got a contrary vibration activated, it doesn't matter how many right actions you take, because it cannot overcome your energetic instruction, which any person who has ever followed a diet or a workout or a business practice to the letter and gained weight instead of lost it, or lost money instead of made it, they'll know firsthand. It's not the diet, it's not the workout, it's not the actions that create whatever changes we experience. It's our vibration. Okay, what else do I want to say to this person? Oh, yeah, highest joy in money. So, look, money, it's probably not that's not actually what our highest joy is. What our highest joy is what we think that money's going to do for us. And you can ask anyone who owns $1 trillion Zimbabwe bill. I own $1 trillion Zimbabwe dollars. It's in one bill. I think I paid $10 for it on eBay. I bought it to remind myself that the money is not what matters. And this is a real actual currency. This is not monopoly money, but it may as well be for all the good it would do a person. Look, we don't even have to talk about this in terms of Zimbabwe dollars. I own a decent amount of US dollars too. And what did that do for me? I still have a mountain paradise turning into the suburbs that I tried to leave behind. At least I'm smart enough to know the answer isn't just move somewhere else, because I can take the suburbs or the city with me wherever I go, because that's the power of vibration. My resistance to it is what activates it, and whatever's activated is going to become our reality. So my vibration, it will trump my actions every time. That goes to our favor as well. You know, when we're supposedly doing the things that shouldn't work, if we got the right vibrations, those actions will pay off every time, because it isn't the actions doing it, it's the vibrations. I just had a friend tell me about this the other day. Wow, what this guy did for money. I mean, he practically sold his soul to make $1 bazillion. All right, I'm exaggerating a little. It wasn't $1 bazillion, but it was a shit ton of money doing something that gave him PTSD. And he even knew, I mean, he's still got emotional trauma that he's still dealing with, even though he quit decades ago. And he knew he wasn't going to like this job, but I don't think he thought it was going to be that bad. But anyway, he made all the money. Oh, he's traveled the world multiple times over. He lives in one of the most sought-after cities in the world, one of the most popular cities on the planet. And he doesn't want to live there anymore. He wants out of the city. He wants to be closer to the mountains. All right, so he bought this gorgeous piece of land that backs up against this giant wildlife sanctuary. It's protected. It's perfect. And he's got all the money. He doesn't have to work. He owns this land. He hired a developer. And this developer turns out to be doing shoddy work to the point where his partner, his girlfriend, doesn't think it's safe to live in that house because it's got foundation issues. They have a lawsuit against the builder. The builder has one against them. She doesn't want to live there because now that this dream of theirs has turned into a nightmare and it's causing them relationship issues. I mean, even $1 bazillion didn't buy that guy happiness. And he specifically said, I'm going to go do this very unfulfilling job that he already knew he wasn't going to like. But he said, I'm just going to do it short term to make a ton of money and never have to work again. And sure enough, he never has to work again. He is free to go wherever he wants. He's gone there. He's free to do whatever he wants. He's done it. And I don't think anyone with their head on straight would want to trade places with him right now. And I don't mean just because of the lawsuit, his dream home turning into a nightmare. But yeah, what he's been practicing, money can't overcome that. My point is, you can have all the money in the world and still not have what you want. I've been hired by those people who have all the money, and they can't buy help. They can't buy happiness. They can't buy a relationship that's rewarding. They can't find a doctor who can fix what's wrong with them because doctors can't do that. Only vibration can. The only value money has to us is whatever we think we're going to do with it. And that is always, always, always at its very heart, the feeling that we're after. That's another thing Dr. Rao said in that interview. Interestingly enough, he called it the double illusion. Anyway, it's easy to think that the money is what we want, but what we really want, it's the freedom and the joy or whatever we think the money's going to do for us. And money can't give us the freedom or the joy. Only we can give that to ourselves. And you don't have to take my word for it or every other spiritual teacher who's ever said the same thing, because the proof is all around us. People show us every day that money and happiness don't automatically go hand in hand. If you haven't heard of rich people who aren't having a good time in life, oh, hello, there's that Succession series for us again, as an example. I'm just saying it's easy to spot when you look for it. The reason we want the money is because of what we think it will do for us, specifically how we think it will make us feel. Free, liberated, happy. Trust me, there are people who have tons of money who are nowhere near any of those good feelings. In fact, some people feel the weight of money. Sometimes they feel the angst of it or the guilt of it or the fear of messing up with it. I mean, money doesn't automatically mean lightness, joy, and freedom. Because money can't do that for you. Only you can. In fact, you might have heard that money doesn't change who you are. It just makes you more of who you are. It just amplifies whatever you're already being. Maybe you've also heard, I know Abraham has said this too, that if you can't be happy where you're at, you can't be happy anywhere, because how we feel actually has nothing to do with what's happening out there. This is all an inside job. The most famous people with the most ideal bodies, the most looked up to successful people in the world are suffering in ways many of us couldn't even comprehend. Oh, I just thought of Twitch. Oh, so heartbreaking. Because look, how we feel, it's not dependent on what life looks like. It's dependent on what we've practiced. And a lot of people don't even know this. They don't know to practice it. Or even if they know to practice it, they don't know how to. They don't know that it's their choice of how they feel. They might actually believe that losing the weight or finding the lover or getting the house or the job or the car or the baby or whatever, the money, whatever, they think that's going to make them happy, but that's just a setup for, I was going to say disappointment or disillusionment, but actually that can be a setup for success once we realize, oh, this isn't going to do it for me. I got to find this myself. When it comes to money, well, a lot of things, not just money. A lot of people have this rule for themselves that they're not going to relax or enjoy or be free until the money's handled. And look, if you relax first, the money will get handled. If you're willing to be free now, everything else that aligns with your experience of freedom will come to you. If you enjoy life however you can in the present moment, the money, it's going to work itself out, as will the weight and the romance or the professional success or whatever you want. When you stop depending on this one factor, this one element in life, when you stop letting the money or whatever dictate how you feel and instead start feeling how you'd rather feel, it will all start working out for you. It'll all flow in, or it'll turn out to be a completely irrelevant factor. One way or another, you're a winner. I'm just saying that whenever we need something to change, before we are willing to change how we feel ourselves, that need is an energetic instruction that keeps us stuck in that version of reality that's not our favorite. That's because need and satisfaction don't go together, so we got to go there first, vibrationally. And that's why I'm saying it's worth getting familiar with abundance and joy and satisfaction and fulfillment, freedom, happiness, whatever. Get familiar with those however you can first, right here now, before anything changes. In fact, let that be the how that you make your dreams come true. And if you need ideas on how to get there, listen to those 5 ideas I shared a minute ago, or read something else at the blog, or listen to another podcast, because that's literally all I produce for us conscious creators. It's reminders of how to manage our vibration in order to manifest our favorite dreams come true. One other thing I want to say to the person who wrote this question. All right, it read, I cannot figure out how in the world to create an income that doesn't take more skills than I currently have or all of my time. Look, I think you're discounting your vibration management skills. I know you've got them, and that's the only one you need, or at least that's the one that makes the real difference. And it doesn't take all of your time, just a couple good feelings here, a couple better thoughts there, and you're home free. That creates the opening for something good to happen. So do the vibrational work because it pays off. All right, I hope you got something good from this. Thanks for listening, everyone. Oh, actually, before I sign off, hey, let's leave our favorite people that we talked about here in a nicer place. For the person who asked this question and for my friend who's moving to the mountains, instead of thinking of them as in some sort of trouble or lack or experiencing a tricky challenge, let's vision them better than that. Let's see them as satisfied. Let's imagine. In fact, let's not do that just for the 2 people. Let's do that for everyone listening to this. You know, as Abraham would say, visiting with the vortex version of our loved ones, that's the best support we can offer anyone. Let's vision everyone listening to this right now as happy, fulfilled, free, loving, enjoying, empowered, enlightened, and all the other good things. That feels better. And so it is. Thanks for listening, everyone. Happy manifesting.